This is an epic stem mastering session where I managed to thicken up the bass and the kick, got the vocals to sit inside the beat nicely, and also drive the track so it was smacking hard. But before I show you all that, I'm going to give you a before and after and tell you a bit of a story behind this project in general.
Tu muovi solo la bocca, simili vanilli, mentre gli avvocati cercano nuovi cavilli per farli uscire su mezzi con più cavalli, più 9 milli. Il cuore mi si stringe, a scuola c'è un bimbo vestito senza firme, non ha strumenti, non distingue, la realtà dalla finzione non è un film. Tranquillizzo mio fratello, ha la forza per uscirne.
So that's the before and after. Now the story behind this particular song is it's one song on an album I mastered for LEX. And LEX is a Greek rapper, and I'd mastered 10 tracks off the 11 for the album. And then the week before the album was going out, the producer Konstantinos comes across to me and goes, "Hey, I've got this one with a feature artist, Gue. Would you like to stem master it?" And I was like, yeah, that's cool. Like, and here's the thing. Back in 2016 to 2018, I was listening to a lot of Italian rap and hip hop. Gue, Fabri Fibra, Jax, Fedez, everyone. Like, that was my thing back in 2016 to 2018. That's all I was listening to. It didn't click to me when he said Gue was the feature artist until I actually heard it, that it was the Italian rapper Gue. And for me, this is a really like humbling full circle moment to be working on a record, working on this album in general for LEX, but then having this feature artist on it was just such a cool experience. Now let's actually jump into the three things I promised you. The thickening up of the bass and the kick, the vocals, getting them pocketed in, and then making this hit. We can look at the stems here, all right, and we can see the nominal volume level, 0, 0, 0. The drums are -1, 0, 0. And there's a reason, because I'm going to get rid of this processing here for the meantime. Okay. When it was at 0, I felt like it was driving just a little bit too hard, the drums. Take a listen.
Tu muovi solo la bocca, simili vanilli, mentre gli avvocati cercano nuovi cavilli per farli uscire su mezzi con più cavalli, più 9 milli. Il cuore mi si stringe a squadra.
Okay, and what we're going to do is we're going to go over to this spectrum analyzer, and it's namely in the kick drum, it's just poking a little bit too hard. And I know that if I hit a limiter with that, it's going to crunch pretty hard underneath it. Take a look again.
Tu muovi solo la bocca, simili vanilli, mentre gli avvocati cercano nuovi cavilli per farli uscire su mezzi con più cavalli, più 9 milli. Il cuore.
So for me, the first move was just to bring this down, ungroup it, to bring it down a decibel.
Tu muovi solo la bocca, simili vanilli, mentre gli avvocati cercano nuovi cavilli per farli uscire su mezzi con più cavalli, più 9 milli.
That helps the subs there sort of just tuck a bit under so it doesn't hit the limiter when I go into my main bus too hard. The problem with that is, though, then on smaller systems, you're not going to get the smack of the drums. So what I'd done specifically on here, using a Ozone Exciter, is I've added some saturation to everything under 240 Hertz. So it introduces some harmonics in this 200 to 400 range. So it's grabbing the fundamental there, adding harmonics up here. So if I play these drums with it off and then I'll turn it on, you'll hear this mid-range here, this 200 to 400 Hertz, those low mids will start to beef up really quickly. So that was the very first thing I did. I wanted to just add a little bit more aggression to the kick in that sort of 200 Hertz range, so it would punch through on smaller systems. And that's just a little bit of saturation here. If we play the Delta mode, you'll hear this saturation. And I've also got this in transient sustain mode, so it's just saturating the transient and not the sustain. So that's the very first thing I heard. I'm like, well, if these drums come down 1 decibel, it's going to give me a bit more headroom to drive it, but I still want the kick drum to smack. So that's the first move I made. The second one was on the bass, and the bass was an interesting one because I felt like, and what I'll do is I'll play the whole stem out, before I put this EQ in, have a look over here. The subs in the bass had a bit more room to fill out. Okay, so just take a listen and a look.
I suoi figli sulle scene del crimine con I sigilli messi dagli sbirri, tu muovi solo la bocca simili vanilli mentre gli
What I want you to do is look at where the fundamental the kick is hitting and where the fundamental the subs are hitting.
I suoi figli sulle scene del crimine, tranquillizzo mio fratello, ha la forza per uscirne. Io voglio una spiegazione, lei delle tette nuove, ballo su bottiglie rotte, è dolce questo hangover e oggi resto spento. Le regole di un tempo sono morte, ma continuo a specchiarmi su sto
So there's a little bit of room there, and I've done, I think, a decibel boost to the subs, just to bring the subs just a little bit out. So what's ended up happening is, I brought the drums down a bit in the subs, the bass up a bit in the subs, and then filled out the upper mids with that harmonic exciter, which I also do to the bass as well, funnily enough, to help it fill out. So now take a listen with this sub boost.
Tranquillizzo mio fratello, ha la forza per uscirne. Io voglio una spiegazione, lei delle tette nuove, ballo su bottiglie rotte, è dolce questo hangover e oggi resto spento. Le regole di un tempo sono morte, ma continuo a specchiarmi su sto cemento. E lui vuole ascoltarmi, sa quello che ho da dire, e fra lui non rispetta chi vuole solo apparire. Io so che non sei pronto a fare un discorso serio. Bitch, tu vuoi volare ma hai paura dell'aereo. Affamati di fama, fottuti dalla squama, la bocca infama, morde la mano che la sfama, non so più.
So it just adds a little bit more sub weight to it. And that's probably what you heard in the before and after, was mainly these two changes happening in the low end. Now with the bass, again, I was thinking small systems. I'm like, not everybody's going to listen to it on a full range system. Where they're going to hear it, they're going to hear it on a small system on their phone, on their laptop. I've just done general saturation here. So if I play the delta signal of the bass, just adding a bit of triode saturation. Now I'll get rid of that delta and we'll just listen to the bass line with this off, and then we'll turn it on.
Aereo, affamati di fama, fottuti dalla squama, la bocca infama, morde la mano che la sfama, non so più cosa è giusto ed è sbagliato, guardo l'ora su un da lì, l'orologio si è squagliato.
Beautiful. So what we'll do is I'll turn these off on the bass, and then I'll turn them on. So you can hear, you just want to hear the low sub ring through. It adds a lot of depth, just this little boost to the subs and the harmonics.
Tranquillizzo mio fratello, ha la forza per uscirne. Io voglio una spiegazione, lei delle tette nuove, ballo su bottiglie rotte, è dolce questo hangover e oggi resto spento. Le regole di un tempo sono morte, ma continuo a specchiarmi su sto cemento. E lui vuole ascoltarmi, sa quello che ho da dire, e fra lui non rispetta chi vuole solo apparire. Io so che non sei pronto a fare un discorso serio. Bitch, tu vuoi volare ma hai paura dell'aereo. Affamati di fama, fottuti dalla squama, la bocca infama, morde la mano che la sfama, non so più cosa è giusto ed è sbagliato, guardo l'ora su un da lì, l'orologio si è squagliato. Street life is the only life.
So that covers the low end. Now, the next thing I have these two vocals. I have Lex's vocal here.
Τους και εφόσον φούσκωσε η κοιλιά τους, πως το πήρε ο μπαμπάς, πως οι θυσίασαν τις μέρες τους για τις Κυριακές.
Alright, and then I got Guez's vocal here.
Con I sigilli messi dagli sbirri, tu muovi solo la bocca simili vanilli, mentre gli avvocati cercano nuovi cavilli per farli uscire.
Okay, now I'm going to play it with all the stems. And what I want you to do is listen to the timbral difference between where the vocals are popping or vocals are sitting and the beat. That's really important because you want everything to like amalgamate so it feels as one solid, heavy hitting sound.
Ζήσαμε πως ένιωσε εκείνη, πόσα κορίτσια ήταν τους πάντες να τραβιούνται μακριά τους. Όταν σε ένα παλιό αμάξι χάσαν την παρθενιά τους. Πόσες μητέρες τις προστάτεψαν μες στην αγκαλιά τους. Και εφόσον φούσκωσε η κοιλιά τους, πως το πήρε ο μπαμπάς. Πόσοι θυσίασαν τις μέρες τους για τις Κυριακές. Πόσοι
Un bimbo vestito senza firme, non ha strumenti, non distingue la realtà dalla finzione, non è un film. Tranquillizzo mio fratello, ha la forza per uscirne. Io voglio una spiegazione, lei delle tette nuove, ballo su bottiglie rotte, è dolce questo hangover.
So what I'm hearing here is you got this really warm beat. Okay, you got this really warm beat overall, and the vocals, the fundamentals, so like where the body of their voice sits, feels like it's a little bit pulled back. Okay, it feels like if we lift out that fundamental, it's going to pocket really nicely into the mix. So what I did for both the vocalists is a boost at around 120 hertz, just where that real low fundamental is. On Lex's, I took a little bit of the 1K out, but what the aim of this is, and what we'll do is we'll look over here, okay, is when you look at the vocal play through, you'll see where the fundamental is. Okay, you can hear it, but it's good to observe it here. So this way we can confirm what we're hearing. So if we listen to Guez.
Un bimbo vestito senza firme, non ha strumenti, non distingue la realtà dalla finzione, non è un film. Tranquillizzo mio fratello, ha la forza per uscirne. Io voglio una
It's that 120 hertz, that real body to it, that gives it that aggression, that gives it that smack. So that's all I did, is we lift it out, and then we get this.
Un bimbo vestito senza firme, non ha strumenti, non distingue la realtà dalla finzione, non è un film. Tranquillizzo mio fratello, ha la forza per uscirne. Io voglio una spiegazione, lei delle tette nuove, ballo su bottiglie rotte, è dolce questo hangover.
So just having that little bit of body when it's in the beat helps it cut through. And it's the same with Lex's, okay? So Lex's, I did a bit more of a broader stroke, a bit lower, but it was the same fundamental principle. It's like, well, where is the body? Where's the energy of that vocal? And where does it sit within the other stems? So if we play the Lex's vocal, one moment, we'll just go back on the timeline to over here.
Μαζί κι ας μεγαλώσαμε χώρια. Και αυτή είναι η πιο υπέροχη αλήθεια. Είμαστε αδέρφια και ας μη στέλνουμε SMS στις γιορτές. Αδέρφια μας μπερδέψανε μες στις κλινικές. Τα οικογενειακά μας άλμπουμ έχουν ίδιες στιγμές. Γιατί ιστορίες είναι κοινές σε όλες.
Perfect. So if we put Lex's in, we've got this big boost at around 80 hertz, but it fills it out quite a bit. So take a listen. We'll go before and after.
Μαζί κι ας μεγαλώσαμε χώρια. Και αυτή είναι η πιο υπέροχη αλήθεια. Είμαστε αδέρφια και ας μη στέλνουμε SMS στις γιορτές. Αδέρφια μας μπερδέψανε μες στις κλινικές. Τα οικογενειακά μας άλμπουμ έχουν ίδιες στιγμές. Γιατί ιστορίες είναι κοινές σε όλες τις γειτονιές. Πόσοι παίξαμε στα άκρα σαν εξτρέμ που δεν συγκλίνει. Πόσοι χάσαμε ανθρώπους από την ηρωίνη.
And that just pushes the vocal forward. Now, let's listen to it with the beat. We'll turn off the EQ and then we'll turn it on for both the vocals. And then you'll have a sense of how it just thickens that vocal into the beat rather than it feeling like a vocalist and the beat itself.
Μαζί κι ας μεγαλώσαμε χώρια. Και αυτή είναι η πιο υπέροχη αλήθεια. Είμαστε αδέρφια και ας μη στέλνουμε SMS στις γιορτές. Αδέρφια μας μπερδέψανε μες στις κλινικές. Τα οικογενειακά μας άλμπουμ έχουν ίδιες στιγμές. Γιατί ιστορίες είναι κοινές σε όλες τις γειτονιές. Πόσοι παίξαμε στα άκρα σαν εξτρέμ που δεν συγκλίνει. Πόσοι χάσαμε ανθρώπους από την ηρωίνη. Πόσοι είχαμε πατέρες που δεν παίρναν ευθύνη. Και όταν την κάναν δεν ρωτήσαμε πως ένιωσε εκείνη. Πόσα κορίτσια ήταν τους πάντες να τραβιούνται μακριά τους όταν σε.
That's on Lex's vocal, then on Guez's vocal.
Gli avvocati cercano nuovi cavilli per farli uscire su mezzi con più cavalli, più 9 milli. Il cuore mi si stringe, a scuola c'è un bimbo vestito senza firme. Non ha strumenti, non distingue la realtà dalla finzione, non è un film. Tranquillizzo mio fratello, ha la forza per uscirne. Io voglio una spiegazione, lei delle tette nuove, ballo su bottiglie rotte, è dolce questo hangover e oggi resto spento. Le regole di un tempo sono morte, ma continuo a specchiarmi su sto cemento. E lui vuole.
Just thickens it, pulls that vocal into the beat, into that space really nicely. Now, in addition to that, I did a little bit of EQ and opened up the side signal of the melodies. Again, just a bit to the low mids of the melody to make those piano notes just a bit more darker, a bit more moody. But the overall stereo width, I just added a little bit here. I didn't want to add anything to the vocals stereo width wise because I had all the reverb, I had all the delays and I didn't want to mess with it. Whereas here, just that little bit, that 10%, just helped it come across just a little bit around everything. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do something. I actually deleted the file, but typically what I will do is I will record the output of all those stems, because then I'm going to show you how I set up my clipper so I can start driving this track to its final loudness. Let's record that. Right, so now that's been exported, I can get it into Audio Editor, and what I'm looking for is the peak level. So at the moment, the peak level is at 4.3. Where are we going to set our clipper? Now, on the actual session, I've got it hard clipping at 7.5, so we'll look at our clipper because this is the first thing I set up. We've got it clipping at 7.5, so all those little peaks get shaved off, and then I have the soft clipper going to 8.5. So from here down to here, it's a gradual soft curve clip. So we've got this. It's a bit hard to see how soft it is. It looks softer when it's at 100%, but what it is actually meant to be, it's meant to be at 8. Okay, so that way, when we go back over to here, we've got this soft curve into from 8.5 to 7.5, and that sets up my standard clip. Then I actually didn't set up this EQ first, so I'm going to bypass that. I'll go into the God particle here, and just take a listen to this with the God particle off and on.
9 milli, il cuore mi si stringe, a scuola c'è un bimbo vestito senza firme, non ha strumenti, non distingue, la realtà dalla finzione non è un film, tranquillizzo mio fratello, ha la forza per uscirne, io voglio una spiegazione, lei delle tette.
As long as I leave standard clip at a peak of, so negative 7.5 plus 1.5, as long as I'm leaving it at a peak of 6 dB, I'm hitting all the markers right for low, mid, and the main marker here for the God particle. And to my ear, when I was actually putting the God particle in, I felt like it was a little bit closed in. So that's why I opted to add a little bit of air to the overall master.
9 milli, il cuore mi si stringe, a scuola c'è un bimbo vestito senza firme, non ha strumenti, non distingue, la realtà dalla finzione non è un film, tranquillizzo mio fratello, ha la forza per uscirne.
That still isn't the final touch for this loudness. What I've actually got here is the vintage limiter into the maximizer. So what I'll do is I'll get rid of this level match here, so we play it at full volume. This is actually how loud the final master is, just for reference point.
Ανθρώπους από την ηρωίνη. Πως είχαμε πατέρες που δεν παίρναν ευθύνη και όταν την κάναν δεν ρωτήσαμε πως ένιωσε εκείνη. Πόσα κορίτσια ήταν τους πάντες να τραβιούνται μακριά.
It's not super loud, but it's loud enough. And the thing I'm doing here with the vintage limiter is you put it in delta mode and then you play it through until the threshold is starting to catch the clicks and pops of the kick and the snare. All right, so I'll show you this. It's just catching the tips of it. If I go more to 4.5, that's going to be squashing all the tops and clicks and pops. Perfect. So that's my vintage limiter set up. Now for the modern limiter, the maximizer, I actually opted for the modern one because I wanted a tighter low end. If we listen to the delta of the balanced, you'll hear it takes out less low end, but I wanted the low end to be a bit tighter and I didn't want to add EQ to it. So just listen to the difference between the delta of the balanced and the modern.
Πόσες μητέρες τις προστάτεψαν μες στην αγκαλιά τους και εφόσον φούσκωσε η κοιλιά τους πως το πήρε ο μπαμπάς τους. Πόσοι πιάσαν τις μέρες τους για τις Κυριακές. Πόσοι έλειψαν σε ιδρυματικές εκδρομές όταν φαινόταν πολυτέλεια ακόμα και ένας. Πόσοι πιάσαμε δουλειά και πόσοι κάναμε δουλειές. Πόσοι δηλώσαν πως θα πέθαιναν για αυτά που αγαπάνε.
With the modern one, it's just a little bit tighter, which is what I wanted. It fitted better with the overall album. So there you go. That's my stem mastering process for this track. Start to end, detailing all my steps. At the end of it, it's just a beautiful album, a beautiful track. I'm super humbled to be a part of. All thanks to the great producer Quicksilver who got me on board with this one. So with that, I hope you enjoyed this. If you've got any questions, leave them down below. And until next time, take care.